How's it going, everyone? Welcome back. The Cincinnati Reds today have reportedly signed Jeimer Candelario, former National, former Cub last season. Batted about 250 on both sides. Pretty solid with runners in scoring position, about 276. From what I remember, if I can recollect, it could be a little streaky, but that's all right. Hey, streaky players are great because here's why it's going to be great. He plays first base and third base. And as we know in Cincinnati, there's not a lot of room at first base and third base. Joey Votto's contract did not get picked up because there's not a lot of room at first base and third base. And Joey Votto to be frank, Votto isn't what he was. He was going to bat 200 in those positions. But I mean, even if the Reds are saying, hey, we're going to just, flexible guys, spend backup player, whatever, we're not going to pick that up because there's not a lot of room. The Cincinnati Reds are a team that walk into this season, they don't just have their backup. The thing is, you get the DH. It's like, all right, we'll just throw them in the DH. They already got their first baseman, third baseman playing DH. And it's like, well, you know what? What if injuries happen? Well, they already got another guy playing outfield that's supposed to play first base, third base. And it's like, oh, well, hang on a second. But we want to keep him in the outfield. It's like, yeah, but we still got more. The Cincinnati Reds have Spencer Steer, who's, again, he's kicked out of the infield at this point in time. You have Encarnacion Strand, you have India, you have Ellie, you have McLean, you have Marte. That's 5. Is that 5? That seemed like a lot. We're gonna run it back one more time because it seems crazy when you really think about this signing. You have CES, you have India, you have McLean, you have Marte. And you have Elliott. Yeah, that's 5. That's what I thought. Okay, so there's 5. There's 5 guys vying for 4 positions as is. And now you bring in a 6th. There's 6 guys. And the thing is with this Cincinnati Reds team, you have a lot of young guys. And of course you could say, well, they didn't call them up. They didn't have to play. But you open that can of worms now. I think it's too little too late to say, okay, we got 5 of these guys. We'll send back one down to AAA. I just don't think you can do that. Not the way they played. Talk about ruining a guy's confidence or his development. How rare you see something like that happen after the seasons these fellas had. But the thing is, when they're young players like that, they gotta play every day. If I'm crawling management, I'm staying as far away from any infielder signing possible because I know my manager. My manager is gonna sit here and platoon these guys and not give these guys everyday at bats. The worst thing you can do for a bunch of young players is not give them at-bats, specifically against either a left-handed or right-handed guy. I mean, that's kind of, say what you will. I've always kind of thought that was kind of how they ruined Jesse Winker in that regard, that he could never hit lefties because as soon as he came into the league, they never gave him an opportunity. You gotta let these guys see at-bats to kind of grow and improve. But that being said, when there's 6 guys in the infield, now let's be clear about Candelario. I like Candelario. I do. I really do. I think in a regular way, I think 90% of teams would be happy to see this guy in a team. I mean, it's not a ridiculous contract, $15 million a year. It's 3 years, not long term. You're not wrapped up for a long time. Fact of the matter is, injuries do happen. And it'd be great to have a guy like that on your team because, like last season, we've seen some injuries kind of derail the Reds a little bit there late. And I'm thinking the Reds management's thinking about that. It's like the last thing we want to see happen is injuries and, or faltering late. But the thing with the signing of Candelario here is he's not a depth player. He's not a depth signing. You don't pay a guy $15 million a year to sit the bench. You have to believe he's playing, you would think, 60 to 70% of games minimum, paying a guy that kind of money. And you're kind of tied down to that for 3 years with all these other prospects around. And I can already see it now. There's going to be a lot of talk, a lot of scrutiny around that situation if things don't change between now and the beginning of the season. And I think that's the thing, a big if. You have to believe there's a bigger picture here. Very rarely do we see the Reds go out and sign a free agent and pay him $15+ million in the first place. And they see the same thing we do. They see all these young up-and-coming studs in the infield. And here's the thing. You don't want to play negative. You don't want to play devil's advocate here. But we have to be honest. There's no chance. There is absolutely no chance every single one of these Reds prospects that are on his starting lineup last season that played well are going to do it all their entire career. There's no chance. To think that the Reds just hit on 10 prospects or 8 prospects and are all going to be 270+ hitter, it's not going to happen. Guys come up in the league all the time. They're hot for a month or two. They cool off and they're never the same again. They ride a hot streak earlier. The team, as soon as pitchers adjust, they don't readjust and they're just kind of stuck where they are. That's baseball. Baseball is one of the hardest sports to learn how to play. And that's a big part of it because there's the scouting towards the adjusting phase. The second you start to figure things out, they find a way to adjust and counter that. It's difficult. It's very difficult. The question is, because here's the thing about this, and again, we're not trying to look at the negative side of things. You got 6 infielders. If half of them hit, you got 3 really good infielders. And if you can have 3 really good infielders, and then you throw in Candelario, you're sitting pretty for 3 years, 6 years, 5 years with the rest. They could hit higher than that. Maybe they get 4 or 6. Maybe they get 5 or 6. I mean, Jonathan India is a perfect example. His rookie year, how good he was, and we're still waiting for him to come back to those levels. But we see the sparks and the sparks and opportunity. I think India is going to be all right. India gets a lot of flack. I like India. I like his attitude. I know let's talk about his defense, but I like his attitude. I like the way he plays on the field. I just hopefully he can figure it out and get back to where he was. He's still solid though. At the end of the day, he's still solid. There's nothing wrong with the way Jonathan India plays. It's just the expectations were a little bit higher. And when there's such a crowded infield and so many young players, understandably, you want to see them all play. And when India's not doing what India used to do, that's it's just like Joey Votto. It's the first thing you're thinking is like, it's all right, we'll see it. Figure something out because we got all these top prospects that need to play some baseball. So you get it. But I think ultimately, the Reds organizations walking into this and saying, and it's a smart thing to do. We just said it's 6 infielders, technically 7. I mean, you got more in the system. You got all these infielders, a lot of shortstops, which is great because shortstops you can kind of move around, put them in the outfield, whatever. And I think it was outfielders like, well, the outfield's kind of crowded too. If you consider Benson, you consider Steer, you consider Rake Fraley. I mean, none of these, and they're all corner outfielders. If you're going to transition to go, you're likely corner outfield. And this is something we've talked about. I think the big answer here is Ellie De La Cruz at center field. We've talked about this in the past. We broke it down in the past. I think the video is out there if you want to hear a further explanation into that. But I do think that's the big answer. And then you have you bust things wide open. And there's that. There's reason one to say the Reds make this move is they believe somebody in the infield can go transition to probably center field. Reason 2 being, you look at all these young talented prospects. And the Reds know exactly where they went wrong last season when these guys were hitting the cover off the baseball. They need pitching. They need pitching under team control. It's difficult, especially this year. The market's not the greatest. We've seen what happens when you pay for free agents just because. I mean, the Mets could do it because of Steve Cohen. He was just throwing money left and right. The problem was there's still only so many options in free agency. They picked up 2 40-year-old pitchers and their season was horrible. Because they couldn't stay healthy. That's just baseball. That's the beauty of baseball. That's the beauty of the Reds have here. They got 6 players that are going to be, or all these players under control for 6 years because of the way the contract and a system set up, which is great. It's a beautiful thing for some of these smaller market teams. But also when you're going to free agency, the big fish are going to eat and they're going to take up all the good talented players because they got the money to do it. And that's left with whatever's left. You're kind of picking through as the smaller teams. So in other words, the best thing the Reds can do is get a pitcher under team control. You get a pitcher under team control for 3-4 years. That's going to cost a lot. What could it cost? Potentially a team that may be looking for some hitting. And the Reds got a lot of that. So I think the other answer here is the Reds saying, hey, we're going to go out here. We're going to pick up Candelario. We're kind of already in the rumblings and the talkings with other teams about a trade to pick up a starting pitcher. And one of these guys is going to be at the door. One of these guys is going to break our hearts. And it's going to be tough to watch them walk out the door. But as a business, to build a complete baseball team, that is what the Cincinnati Reds need to do. And as a Reds fan, you hope and pray the one they send out the door is the one that kind of falls off the cliff in a couple of years and say, oh, okay, I don't feel bad. Because you don't want to see them go out the door and win 2 MVPs. That would be difficult. But it's a game of, risk reward. Trades are made all the time. The Reds made some trades for a lot of these young players that are doing really well. And you kind of have to trust the organization. One thing they've done really well is kind of scouting in some of these trades, making some of these moves and bringing in guys that could fit this lineup and rebuilding it quickly. We shall see, though. Love y'all's thoughts. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.